Alright, so you are taking notes on page 94. This is if you missed or need extra help. This is section 4, topic 3. It is interpreting rate of change and y-intercepts in a real-world context, part 1. There's a part 2 as well, which you will need to take notes on. Okay, so let's get into the first problem. The first problem states that the T-Mobile One family plan includes 4 lines and unlimited data calls and text for $160 per month, including taxes and fees. There's an activation fee of $80. Okay, so the first question says define the variable and write a function that represents this situation. So first, it says function, so we have to use a function of f of x. Okay, remember your f and your x could be any variable that you want. So in this case, I think a smart one would be t for T-Mobile. Okay, so we got to figure out what we need though. Right away I see a number and it says per month. So that means I'm going to need that. I also see another number and that's an activation fee. Okay, and the activation fee is $80. So let's write this out. So the first one we're going to use is M, and clearly that one would stand for the month. Okay. But that's not the only thing I need to figure out. I also want to figure out the T of M. Now the T of M, again, the reason I'm using T is because we're talking about T-Mobile. The M stands for the month, but if I put both of these together, it would stand for the total cost. Okay? So I defined all my variables. Now I need to write a function. Okay? So the function, we're going to start with T of M because that's our answer. Now our problem is going to have the two things that I boxed. So the first thing I boxed was an $160 per month, and then the second thing was an activation fee of $80. So let's go ahead with that first box and 160 per month. Do I know how many months? No. So since I don't know, I have to put a variable. So 160 M. Once again, M stands for month. Okay. Then there's an activation fee. The activation fee is $80, so that's a plus 80. Now it doesn't say $80 per month, it doesn't say per year, so because of that I can just leave 80 by itself. Alright, so that's it. So this is the formula, that's my variables, what they stand for, and now let's represent this on a graph. So if I want to represent this on the graph, I just look at my two variables. The first one is going to be month, and the second one would be total cost. So my x-axis is going to be month, my y-axis is going to be total cost. Again, all I did was I took these right here and I put them on my x and my y's. Okay. So now the graphing is only hard if you make it hard. So instead of going up by months, 5, 10, 15, just do it easy. Go up by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. Now my total cost is a little different though. So this answer right here is going to be my total cost. Okay. Now it wouldn't be smart for me to go up by a small number because these two numbers are not small. So because those two numbers are not small, it would be smarter for me to go up by a number bigger. So probably not 5, probably not 25, not 50. I would go up by hundreds. Okay. So we'll do that. 100, 200, 300, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1,000. Now, if you wanted to, you could have gone up by 160, but that's more math on your part. Make this easy on yourself, okay? In the corner is always 0. Alright, so now let's graph this. So, if I were to graph it at 0, what would my charge be? So if I put 0 in for month, how much am I going to pay no matter what? Well, I'm going to have to pay that activation fee, which is $80. So the first dot is going to be 80. Okay. Now after I pay that activation fee, at 1 month, so it's 160 times 1 plus 80. Well, 160 times 1 is 160. Now all I have to do is do 160 plus 80, and that answer is 240. So at 1 month, I'm paying $240. So at 1, we go up to 240, is a little bit lower than halfway, which we can assume is right there. Okay. Now when you graph, I don't need us to graph a lot. I just need us to graph a little bit. So I only need 3 dots. So the first dot, the second dot, and then the third dot. So now we have 240, and what are we gonna do with that 240? Well, all I'm gonna do is add 160 to that. Why am I gonna add 160 to that? Because look, every time my month is gonna change, it's just gonna multiply. So it's just gonna add an additional 160. Okay, so if I add these two together, that gives me an answer of 400. So at 2 months, I'm at 400. Okay, now as I said earlier, I only need 3 dots. So the first one, the second one, and third one. All you need to do now is start at your base and draw your line as straight as possible and go from there. Now if you were to do this on the computer, then you would need more than 3 dots. But on the computer, it's a lot easier. For handwritten ones, I only am looking for 3 dots. Okay. If I wanted to find the next one, I would just add 160 and keep adding 160. The reason I'm going to add 160 is because, well, let's answer this question. What is the slope of the line, and what does the slope represent? So how much is each one of these dots going up by? Each one of these dots is going up by 160. And what does 160 represent? Well, it represents the charge each month. So you will be charged $160 each month, and then it keeps going. That is your slope. Okay. One thing I want you to notice, what is 160 attached to? So what is this attached to? Well, it's attached to a variable. So keep that in mind, a hint right there. It is attached to a variable. Alright, let's move on. At what point does the line intersect the y-axis, and what does this point represent? So where on this graph right here that we just did, does one of these dots hit the y-axis? Remember, the y-axis is this axis right here. So on this line that I'm drawing, where does it hit on that red line? Well, it hits right here. Okay, and what was that point? That point was 80. Alright, so let's go back. At what point does the line intersect the y-axis? Well, it hits it at 80. And what did 80 represent in this problem? Well, it represented the activation fee. Okay, so this is really important right here. The y value of the point where the graph intersects the y-axis called the y-intercept. So again, whenever it hits the y-axis, again, this part right here, this is the y-axis. So when did it hit the y-axis? That is 80. So whenever it hits the y-axis, it's called the y-intercept. If it were to hit the x-axis, it would be called the opposite, the x-intercept. So y is when it hits the y-axis, x is when it hits the x-axis. Let's move on. Alright, you saved $250 to spend over the summer. You decide to budget $25 to spend each week. So this word spend, okay, you're not saving, you're spending it. So define the variables and write a function that represents the situation. Okay, so we're going to use W for weeks. Okay, and then I need my total, how much I have left over. So since we're talking about the summer, let's do S of W. So S of W is going to mean how much money I have over. So how much money I have. Alright, let's create a problem now, a function. Okay, so my total is going to be S of W. Now, how much am I spending? Well, how much money do I have? I have a $250, right? And then I decide to budget $25 to spend each week. Again, that word spend. So am I adding to the 250 or am I taking it away? I'm taking it away. So it has to be a minus. Because I'm spending, it has to be the minus. And how much am I spending each week? I'm spending $25. And since we're talking about $25 each week, do I know how many weeks? No, so I need to put a W for weeks. And this right here is the problem. Alright, let's move on. Again, if I'm going too fast, you can pause it and move on. Alright, so remember that these variables up here that we just made are our variables down here. So the x-axis is going to be weeks or week. The y-axis is going to be leftover money. So how much money I have left over depending on the week. Okay. So on weeks, let's just go easy. Once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Alright. Now with leftover money, how much money am I being taken away each week? Well, I'm taking away $25. So 25 would be a great point right here. So if I go up by 25, 25 after 25 is 50, 75, 100, keep going, 125, 150, 175, 200, 225, and then 250. Okay, once again we end at 0. Okay, now at 0 weeks, how much money do I have? How much money did I start off with? Well, I started off with $250, so I have to put 250 right here. Now, after 1 week, how much am I spending? How much did I take away? Well, remember, I'm going down each time by 25, so after 1 week, I'm down 25. Now, if I keep going, after 2 weeks, I'm down another 25. So 225 minus 25 is 200. There's a pattern right here. All I'm doing is down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Go ahead and complete these. I know I said 3 dots, but on this one it's easy. I can easily graph everything. It's all these corners right here. Okay. When I'm done with all my dots, all I need to do is draw a line through it. Okay. And it's that simple. Let's move on. So what is the slope of the line? What does the slope represent? So how much money did I take away each week? Well, I took away $25 each week. And what does $25 mean? It means how much I spend each week. How much I spend each week. Okay. And since we're actually going down, it's actually a negative 25. It's not a positive. Alright. So what is different about the slope of this line compared to our earlier problem? Why is it different? So basically what that's saying is, what's the difference between this green line that we just made and this line up here, this red line? Just look at the direction of both of the lines. One's going up and one's going down. So this line is going down. And so why would it be different? Why is this line different than the other one? Well, we have a negative slope. So that is why our line is going down on this one. So negative slope. So what is the y-intercept and what does this point represent? So where again on this green graph does my line hit the y-axis? Where on this graph does it hit the y-axis? Okay, so if I look again, y is this line. So where does it hit? And it hits at 250. That right here is my y-axis. And it hits right here. So what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is 250. Now what did 250 represent? It represented the starting amount. So the starting amount. Okay? And that is it. So you guys are going to do the same thing we just did in those two problems on your own for this one. You need to show it to me in order to receive credit. Most of you, everyone that was in class did this already. So now you have to do this on your own. Okay, it's the same exact questions. What is the slope of the line? What is the y-intercept? Define the variables. You need to look back at the answers from the previous questions in order to do this. Okay, if you have questions, let me know, and you will get credit for this.